And introduce TerryAnn as our speaker tonight, and um, her title for tonight's speech is "A New Path Emerges." TerryAnn.
I don't know if you've heard, but we are 1 year into a worldwide pandemic. While I have heard of previous events like this, also with many illnesses and deaths, there is one thing we can celebrate that those others could not: technology. Toastmasters has always been there, moving with the world into new paths of culture, of learning, of experience. And this past year is no exception. After decades of printed materials for education, in 2017, Toastmasters introduced a new format, online learning, and they called it Pathways. As happens with every attempt at change, there were some who rejected the idea without even looking at it. Some commented things like, "I'm on the computer all day. I am not going to do my Toastmasters on the computer too." Others jumped in reluctantly, and a few with excited anticipation of the possibilities. Problems? Yeah, there were a few. Like any new program, any change of habit, there was some tweaking to be done. Remember when you first loaded Windows? How many versions of Windows have you now gone through? Listening to feedback from its audience, Toastmasters learned what its membership wanted, what they needed, and they adjusted the path. As we entered 2020, with plans for Toastmasters to move completely away from the manuals to the Pathways program, the world was hit with a pandemic that led governing officials to order no public gatherings. We could not meet together as Toastmasters. We couldn't make our presentations. We couldn't practice table topics. We couldn't pass around our manuals for comments and feedback. With the onset and isolation created by the pandemic, many organizations struggled. Schools were closed. Businesses were unable to operate as usual. Toastmasters meetings, whether held in a restaurant, a library, office space, wherever, were immediately halted. But that did not stop Toastmasters. Determined to continue in personal and professional development, local clubs and districts worldwide stepped up to find a workable solution. And Toastmasters continued. The heart of its membership would not only find a way to continue, but to grow. Our meeting format changed, yet the vision and mission of Toastmasters continued. In-person meetings moved to online platforms like Zoom and Microsoft Teams. Pathways, the online education program presented earlier, was now in full swing. Though unplanned, the two came together. And like any change, or perhaps we could even call this one a partnership, there were challenges, some confusion, and a huge learning curve. And there was success. We saw people step up in leadership to help guide the membership through this difficult time. Now, the tagline of Toastmasters is "Where leaders are made." And with this challenge, members who often remained in the background emerged, bringing light to the darkening path. Though one did not lead to the other, Pathways and the pandemic together created new opportunities for many of us. Thanks to online technology, clubs were able to continue meeting without the members having to leave their homes. We could visit clubs all over the world. No more were we restricted to just our local membership clique. People who were not Toastmasters are able to visit without the fear and intimidation of stepping into a corporate room filled with people they don't know. In their own relaxed atmosphere, they can watch a meeting in progress to learn what Toastmasters is all about. This has led many not only to visit, but to join a club which they would not have considered before. Prior to Pathways, we attended meetings with book in hand, offering it to another. Will you evaluate me? Or perhaps, I forgot my book. Would you write out some feedback for me that I could put in my book? And then we would gather these little pieces of paper with notes of encouragement and suggestions for improvement after each meeting. I recently heard someone comment, it's not the same. We don't get that written feedback anymore. To that, I say, oh, yes, we do, and so much more. Now, instead of handing someone your book, email them an evaluation form. Oh, you didn't send them a form? They can go to Toastmasters Online and download the specific form for your specific speech. Enter the feedback, save, and email it back to the speaker. Those little pieces of papers that we collected, offering feedback and encouragement, they now come in the form of private chat. At the end of each meeting, go to chat, click save, and it's right there for you. Have you ever lost your book? All your feedback? All the documentation of your speeches and leadership work is gone. Toastmasters now offers you the opportunity to save all those evaluations and feedback notices to your personal online folder. Log in at toastmasters.org. Go to Basecamp. On your Basecamp homepage, find My Documents. There are already folders there, one for each of the 5 levels, plus one more labeled My Documents. You can attach files to any of these folders, just like you attach files to emails, to OneDrive, Google Drive, Cloud Drive, any drive. Without this, if you saved only to your computer, if that system crashes, it would be like losing your book. All documentation is lost. By uploading these documents, they are always at your fingertips, no matter what technology system you're using. Now, on that same Basecamp homepage, click on My Feedback. Here, you can request feedback from your home club members, and you can give feedback to members of your home club. And as a special bonus, it frees up the desk space of the books and the clutter. Do you like to play video games? You know, in video games, how you collect all those numerous digital badges for achievements? Did you know that you can give digital badges to other members? If you think they did a good job, give them feedback and a digital badge, even if you're not their official evaluator. Encourage your fellow Toastmasters with a click on the keyboard. And if you are unsure how to do all of this, there are online materials, tutorials within the program to guide you every step of the way. You don't have to wait for your club VPE to sit alongside you or for a presentation to be made. You can watch YouTube to learn to do just about everything. Why not use the videos provided within the program to enhance your Toastmasters Pathways learning? But I told you it's not the same. Pathways isn't like the old program. You're right. It isn't. It is not the same education program, but it is the same Toastmasters. The first club, formed in October 1924, assembled by Dr. Ralph C. Smedley, was established to afford practice and training in the art of public speaking and in presiding over meetings, and to promote sociability and good fellowship among its members. Now, before you go digging me for all those ands, that's in the official report, by the way. But that has not changed. Even in the online world, that is still the purpose of Toastmasters. The education program has changed. Schools don't teach the same things they did or the way they did in 1924. From the manuals, we read a few pages and proceeded. With the online program, we not only read text, we can watch video presentation demonstrations of the techniques discussed. Short questionnaires are offered to ensure understanding. Self-evaluation polls are created to allow you to assess your personal growth. The day I completed my Competent Communicator book, another speaker that evening completed his book too, his 10th Competent Communicator book. I asked him why he did the same things over and over to complete 10 times. He told me that with each one, he learned a little bit more. Well, Pathways takes that goal of continuing to learn and to grow to a whole new level. Each path offers opportunities to grow in communication and leadership. There are 11 paths to choose from, expanding over 300 competencies. Level 1 of each path is exactly the same. There is your opportunity to learn from repeating. Then each of the following levels hones in on more specific areas that would apply to everyday life. Where the same 10 speeches in the Competent Communicator were very generic. Now, as a side note, for an excellent presentation on paths and the competencies, I urge you to check out the recordings made by Catherine Capps in training on Pathways. It is on the District 22 YouTube channel. Her sessions were, in Andre Red's words, phenomenal. They were amazing and explained the paths and the competencies beyond anything I've seen anyone else do. I couldn't even begin to compare. Many of the paths can be aligned with corporate employer proficiency skills. Check your next corporate review against the competencies listed on your path, and you might be surprised to see some similarities. Now, when we used to pick a topic, try to find a place for it to fit in the Competent Communicator Manual. Now, we have paths focusing on specific areas to achieve a more personal goal. This presentation tonight is a final project for me in the effective coaching path. This path includes and expands on portions of study from the Competent Communicator Manual. It adds some additional components from the advanced manuals, like going beyond the typical 5 to 7 minute speech. And the path also required a leadership, high performance leadership, HPL, an HPL as from the earlier Competent Leader Manual. For that piece, I created an incentives program for our club, worked with a team to tweak it, presented it to the club, and have maintained it through the year. Oh, that Competent Leader Manual I just mentioned, do you know that that wasn't part of the program several decades ago? I talked with several longtime Toastmasters. They told me that when the separate leadership program was introduced, the same uproar was heard about changing things as we're hearing now about Pathways. Speaking of change, did you know women were not allowed to join Toastmasters until 1973? Talk about dramatic change. Change happens. How many of you still use a telephone attached to the wall in the kitchen? Do you still watch TV calling in the kids to adjust the rabbit ears? Are you able to prepare a meal and not use a microwave? Times have changed, introducing new paths and opportunities. The Toastmasters education program has changed, creating new paths of learning. The world has changed and new paths are emerging daily. The question is, are you staying behind? Or are you willing to change your perspective to embrace new possibilities, opening new pathways onto which you will choose to boldly proceed? Madam District Director.